Alright guys, welcome back. This is week 4 of the semester. If somebody could close the door, or Tianhong, if you could close the door please for us. Thank you, so we don't annoy other people. So attendance is a regular thing now, so if you come in, every time you come to class, just check in, go to Blackboard, click on tools, and check in. If you miss the screen up here, I'm always going to put it up on the board here, and also here. Gap between the screens. Alrighty. Okay. A couple things before we get started. So office hours. I post office hours here, and we added one more on Tuesday. Nguyen's gonna do some more office hours on Tuesday, right before the lab is due. So if you need some help with that, he'll be there. So now we kind of cover. There's at least one office hour going on every single day. Hopefully you can make it to at least one of them. If not, you can always make an appointment with me too. So if you're really struggling with something and you really want to come talk to me, please email me, and I'm happy to make an appointment with you. I mean, that's really the only reason I'm here anyway. So if you didn't know, I'm something called teaching faculty, meaning all I do is teach. I don't do research or anything like that. So all my work hours go to teaching. So if you, again, don't feel bad trying to make an appointment with me. If you have any questions, I'm very happy to help you out. All right. So, and as you can tell, this is a Google Calendar here. So these office hours are gonna be, they're gonna be slightly, they might be different depending on the week. So if there's any cancellations, like some a TA got sick or something and they have to cancel office hours, it's gonna be reflected up on here. So. Just keep that in mind. We're also, of course, going to email you if any office hours get canceled, but, just in case you miss an email, just make sure to check here, and you can easily see, which are my office hours this week or whatnot. Okie dokie. Alrighty, then let's get started. So today, again, if you just walked in, make sure you get your attendance in. It's Blackboard, go to Tools, and just type those 4 letters in. Alrighty, so the last 3 weeks we've been extensively talking about HTML, CSS, and we even talked about like a framework called Bootstrap to help us write CSS even faster. So I hope by now you really understand HTML, CSS, and I hope by now that you can make pretty standard looking layouts with not too much hassle. So now that we got really good at HTML, CSS, now it's time to learn a completely new language called JavaScript. Right, because it's a new language, there are some slides I want to go over here. So let's go ahead and go over some slides here. So the journey so far. So we've seen this picture before where we talked about why we have full stack development or whatnot. And so far we've been focusing on the front end part of it all, and we've been focusing on the browser. And we started with HTML because no matter what you do, whether you're a front end developer, a back end developer, or a full stack developer, you have to work with HTML files eventually, because HTML is what ultimately users see. So we talked about the HTML and CSS a lot. Now we're going to talk about a language called JavaScript, which is also primarily focused on the front end here. And JavaScript is, unlike HTML and CSS, it is a full-fledged programming language. So things you learned in your other programming classes like Java, C++, these things are going to come back because the same kind of ideas exist in JavaScript. So functions, variables, arrays, all those exist in JavaScript. Let's talk a little bit about JavaScript. So JavaScript, or we also fondly known as simply JS. So if you've heard of React.js, AngularJS, or whatever JS, that's literally what that JS is for. Okay, JavaScript. Okay, it is, like I said, it's a programming language that can be read, and it's very important here, executed by the browser. All right, so it's just like HTML, CSS. When we save an HTML file, you open on the browser, just runs, right? Same thing, same idea exists here. JavaScript can be read and executed by keyword the browser. So you don't need a compiler. You don't need to install a fancy compiler or some kind of interpreter thing, anything like that. If you have a browser, your browser automatically can run JavaScript. That's why it's very easy to get started with JavaScript. One of the reasons why I really like JavaScript. There's a chair right over here. Wow. Looks like everyone's here today. Awesome. So JavaScript might remind you of, isn't that like Java, right? That kind of reminds me of Java. But be careful here. Java and JavaScript are completely different languages, right? They do look somewhat the same, like how you write the syntax looks very similar, but they're completely two different languages. When JavaScript first came out, they just wanted to market themselves better, so they call themselves JavaScript. But Java and JavaScript have nothing to do with each other. Underneath the hood, they're very, very different. So let's not get confused here. Just because you know Java doesn't mean you know JavaScript, and vice versa. Okay. Like I mentioned, it's primarily used on the client side, meaning primarily we use JavaScript for the browser. However, things have changed in the recent years, in the last few years or so, thanks to a platform called Node.js. Now you can write JavaScript on the back end as well. You can write JavaScript on the server side as well, and that created a whole new thing only because now, theoretically, if you know JavaScript, now you can easily be a full stack developer because you can do the front end and the back end with just JavaScript. So theoretically, a lot of people are saying now all you need to know is learn JavaScript and that's it. You don't need to know any other languages. You don't need to know PHP. You don't need to know any of that. Simply JavaScript is okay. Again, I say theoretically because Node.js is still very different from how we write JavaScript on the client side. But anyway, so there's that buzz going on these days. Again, JavaScript is a full-fledged programming language. It can do all kinds of really neat things. But there are a few things I want to just focus on today, especially that JavaScript is really, really good at. First things first, it's very good at DOM manipulation. Okay, it's very good at manipulating your HTML elements, and we'll look at that later today. It's very good at listening to user events. It knows when the user clicks on something, hovers over something, and key press. It knows all of that. With CSS, we could do hover effects, right? That was pretty easy to do. But now with JavaScript, we can do a lot more than just hover effects. We can do clicking stuff. We can do even key press. Another not mentioned here is you can even do scrolling effects. Like when you scroll, things happen, right? JavaScript is very, 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 very good at listening to user events. Thirdly, and this is something we're not going to be talking about today per se, but it's very good at client-server communication. So with JavaScript, you could actually talk to the server without having to reload the page, and that's also known as AJAX. We'll talk more about that in the next maybe like two or three lectures down the road. Today we're really going to focus on these two big things. And they can do a lot more, like I said. It can do almost anything. Java can do almost anything. C++ can do almost, right? But these are the key things we're going to at least use in our class. All right, rather than me talking about it, let's kind of take a look at what JavaScript really does, okay? Instead of me talking about it, it's just so much easier if I just kind of show you. All right, so this is Facebook, and I know that less people use Facebook now, so maybe this isn't the best example. But let's look at the Facebook page here. You notice when you click on that globe icon, that's like your notification icon. When you click on it, this box shows up, right? This panel of your recent notification shows up, right? That's JavaScript doing its thing right there, doing what it's best. So if you think about it, what happened is when I click on that globe icon, this box appears, and we know what boxes are, right? We know with HTML we can create this. This is just a div, right? This is just a div. So literally with JavaScript, I'm saying when I click on the globe icon, make this div appear, and in that div, fill it up with all these notifications, right? But essentially, well, that's what JavaScript's doing. JavaScript just says, hey, when a user clicks on the globe icon, show this div. Okay, similar idea here. That's the next one. On Facebook, when you want to post like a status, you click on that thing and you start typing in your status, right? Notice how that all of a sudden when I start typing, the white box appeared, right? And then also the background got grayed out, right? That's also JavaScript. JavaScript is literally triggering that to happen. So what JavaScript knows when you start typing in here, it knows, hey, it's doing something. Let's make this box feel like it's zoomed in. Let's gray out everything else. So as you can see, JavaScript is triggering that event, but everything else, all the grayed out, all the white stuff, that's still CSS. That's still stuff you know how to do. But JavaScript is essentially triggering that event. Here's another example, and this one we've seen more. So this one, if you hover over any trending link, you see how this box appears. Again, divs. All right, so JavaScript knows when I hover over this thing, a box appears. So as you can see, JavaScript is extremely interactive. It allows your website to be super interactive. So when you touch something, when you click something, when you hover something, when you type something, JavaScript makes that something happen. So JavaScript makes your website all of a sudden extremely interactive. It's not just static and just text anymore. It's now doing things with the user. Here's another thing JavaScript does all the time. You see this all the time, right? When you go and create a new account on some whatever new website, nowadays your password has all these rules, right? You have to use like 8 or more characters. You have to use a number and 5 like symbols, and right, you gotta use all these rules, these annoying rules. Well, JavaScript is very good at detecting that as well. And if you've ever noticed, while you're typing it, like it checks. There's like websites that check for you, right? That's JavaScript again in action. So every time you're typing something, it's running some kind of JavaScript code to check that whatever you typed in matches all the password rules. So that's JavaScript is very, very good at these kind of stuff. So anytime you see anything like this, anything interactive, most likely it's JavaScript of some sort. All right, so I hope you understand what JavaScript kind of does. Let's kind of look now how to write JavaScript a little bit more. All right, so syntax, how we write JavaScript. You're going to see that it looks somewhat similar to your C++ or your Java or Python days. To create a variable, it's as simple as writing something like this: var name equals, and notice my quotes here. The quotes are saying this is a string. If I want to create a number, I just simply put number 2. But they also take booleans as well. So unlike Java or C++, you don't need to write the type of the variable. You don't have to int whatever or double whatever. You're simply just naming things, and that's it. And so we call these kind of languages typeless languages, or loosely typed languages, where we don't care. We don't care about data types. We just name things as they are. Some people love this. Some people hate this. I don't know. It's up to you on your preference, I guess, really. But I tend to like this. There's also, I'm going to show you, this is another way to declare variables. It's using this keyword called let instead of var. Notice how, notice how we have var and then let. All right, so JavaScript is in this weird transition period. Unfortunately, you guys happen to come in during this transition period. Just like, your iPhones and your MacBooks update every so once in a while, languages update too, if you didn't know that. Even C++, they have updates every so many years. Even Java, they update Java every so many years. But JavaScript recently went through a huge update. We call this version, or ES6 is a nice way of saying it. And ES6 introduced a lot of new things to JavaScript. So many things that honestly I still haven't really caught up with either, just because there's so many. One of those new updates is, instead of naming things as var, you can now, instead of creating variables by using the word var, you can use let, right? And let has slightly different scoping rules than var. And you might come across that. So because of that, some people just always use let instead of using var. So in our class, we're going to try to stick with using let most of the time. For most of our cases, we should be fine with just using let. All right, so that's variables for you. So again, if you want to create a string, you just put some quotes around it. If you want to create a number, you put a number, just type the number in. You could put decimals as well, 2.557 or whatever, booleans, same ideas. Objects, this is an object in JavaScript. It's very easy to create objects in JavaScript. It's probably one of my favorite things about JavaScript. And you don't have to create a class or anything like that. You simply can create objects on the fly, just like this, just by simply, again, that var, we're creating a variable, but the type is object, right? So we have this curly bracket says it's an object. We're going to do a lot more with objects down the road, but this is kind of how you create objects, and this is this is a property, this is a value, right? So on and so forth. What else? Oh, so another common thing you see, conditional statements, if-else statements, they look pretty similar to what you've seen before. Notice the curly braces, right? They kind of follow the same idea here. Loops, similar idea. So you've seen loops before, but JavaScript also has loops. A slight thing that might be different is we notice how we use dot length here. It's not dot size of or dot. I forget what the other ones were called, but it's simply dot length, and you can run through any kind of list or any kind of array in here using this. Okay. Speaking of for loops, arrays, right? Arrays are very easy to create in JavaScript as well. You simply say, again, declare a variable called number array and set it equal to an array. Boom. And then now you can easily add things to the array by putting dot push. And then now the array was 1, 2, 3, 4. Very easy to create things on the fly with JavaScript. Okay. Functions, another key concept in any programming language. You declare a function by simply doing something like this. Function, say that's the function, and then that's the name of the function. There's another way to write it as well. You can set it to a variable and write function like this as well. And then to invoke the function or to call the function, you simply just say hello, and then that will run. Okay. Not too different, far off from what you've probably seen in other programming languages, but I just wanted to show you some of the little differences. Okay, so we kind of got the syntax down. Just know that there's little things that are different. And JavaScript is a different language, so when you're doing your assignment or when you're working on the lab, you might realize, oh hey, this is different from C++ or from Java. Just note those things in your head and and know that JavaScript will be different in some cases. Right. So key features of JavaScript, like I mentioned, we're going to cover 2 key features today. We're going to find and change elements in the DOM, whatever that means. And secondly, we're going to learn with JavaScript, learn how to listen to user events. Let's talk about the first thing, finding elements. Like, what the heck do I mean by that? So this is like your typical HTML file here, right? I wrote some HTML here. When I'm writing HTML here, what you're actually doing is you're creating HTML elements on the fly. You're creating HTML objects. Actually, they are actually objects on the fly, and because they're when you're creating objects, you're actually building something called a DOM, a document object model, and it looks something like this. Literally, when you're writing HTML, this gets converted into a nice little hierarchical tree here, kind of a tree like this, where it actually organizes your HTML according to what you wrote here. So when we like nested things, when we made things children of things, right? Like for example, H1 is a child of body. Right, H1 is a child of body. It's literally creating a DOM, a tree-like structure. Like we call these nodes, by the way. Each of these little elements, we call them nodes. Okay, so this is actually being created underneath the hood. Once this is created, with JavaScript, now we can grab any element we want in here. Right, JavaScript now is able to manipulate anything in our DOM. So, for example, we wrote hello, right? Hello here, and let's say I want to change its font size for whatever reason. We can do that using CSS, right? We can just say H1, font size 24 pixels, no big deal. Right? But with JavaScript, we can now do the same thing, but it looks a little bit different. It looks something like this. Okay. Notice like this document and this query selector. Right? So it allows us to find any element as we wish, and we can do whatever we want with it. Let's continue down the loop. Right? There's a lot of different ways you can use to select DOM elements. There's a lot here. Let me just kind of list them out here. Query selector all. Get element. We can get HTML elements by ID, by class name, by tag name. There's a lot of different options here. Okay, so that's one thing. Secondly, we can also, like I mentioned, we can listen to user events. Right. So these are some of the events. There's a lot more actually. On click, when I click on something, when I put my mouse over something, when I put my mouse out of something, so on and so forth. There's other events that allow us to interact with elements as well. We're going to do some code examples, but we're going to go ahead and do them together. But it looks something like this. Like it looks something like, hey, document, when I find, if there's a div with an ID content, when I click on it, change this background color to blah, blah, blah. We're able to do stuff like this with JavaScript. Okay, so looking back at the live action, that kind of makes sense, right? When I'm going to write JavaScript that says, when I click on this globe, maybe the globe has like an ID called globe, right? When I click on this element with the ID globe, get this div here, this div, let's say maybe has an ID notification or something. Get this ID notification div and then make it visible. Another thing here, just for you to know, also because now we have this nice tree-like structure, like we have the child and all that stuff, we can use stuff like this. Like we can access other elements using parent node, children, next sibling, like children are like the H1 is a child of body, right? We can use traversal properties to grab elements as well. Right? Okay, let's try it out. Okay, with JavaScript, it really clicks when you actually write it. All right, so let's go and try it out. If you go to today's lecture notes, Intro to JavaScript. Okay, there is some starter code I have here for you. there's this little download icon. Go ahead and click download. Click on direct download. Okay, and go to wherever you're saving your ITP 303 folder, and just it's a zip. It's gonna download as a zip. So go ahead and just download that zip, and then make sure you unzip it, and then you're gonna have this folder with a bunch of stuff here. And I'm giving you a zip this time because we have, I don't know, we just have a lot of files, so it's giving a nice zip here. Right? I don't really need this zip anymore. Okay. Alrighty, if you pop open your Sublime text, let's go and open up these two files, the js.html. You can just drag it in like this if you want, or you could do file open, whatever floats your boat. Okay, js.css. Okay, we're gonna have two files. Alright, I found a typo in my morning section, so if you go to real quick in your JS CSS, if you can go to line around 82, it says hide as display block. That's wrong, it's gonna be display none. Right? Okay, I'm gonna save that. Let's go back to our HTML. So we're not really going to touch our CSS file too much because I've given you all the CSS for you. We're just going to really work with the HTML file today. If I open this in my browser, it's going to look something like this with some buttons, and we're going to have an image of Kanye West. We have some color with some boxes, and we have some of these things here. And I have all the HTML written for you, the CSS written for you as well, because we're going to now work with JavaScript. And you're going to see how JavaScript plays really well with HTML and CSS. So this HTML CSS you learned, we're not just forgetting it, okay? We still need to know HTML CSS to work with JavaScript. However, we are going to be more focusing on JavaScript now. Yes. Oh, yes, sorry. If you go to the CSS file, go around line 82. It says here, it said like display block or something. Go ahead and change it to none. All right. Okay. As you're downloading this, let's take a look here. So we have buttons. We have two buttons on the top here, right? One says don't click me, another one says don't touch me. Notice how I've given them all IDs as well. Okay, everybody here so far? Anybody still downloading stuff? Okay. Just want to be careful because we are doing something new today. Okay, so again, this is your typical HTML file. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add JavaScript here so that it's going to be interactive. It's going to do stuff. When I click on this button, something's going to happen, right? When I hover over the image, we're going to change the image around. We're going to change some background colors. We're going to do some basic JavaScript just so you kind of get a feel for it. And once you got a feel for it, you do have a lab and an assignment this week. I posted the assignment as well because the assignment is going to take you a little longer probably than your other assignments, just your FYI. But for your lab at least, you're going to create something like this, an image gallery where you click on the image and the image changes. I've given you the images and this HTML CSS already. All you have to do is make this change happen. All right, that's kind of what you're trying to do today. Okay, so let's go ahead and start this. Okay, so JavaScript, how the heck do we do this? I'm going to scroll all the way down, all the way down, all the way down to where you have the end of the body. So when you reach the end of the body, that means the HTML is over. So we don't want to go there yet. Right before we end the body, this is where we're going to start our JavaScript. Start JavaScript here. Okay. So we're going to be writing our JavaScript on this HTML page because HTML, once I load it, it's going to run. So to write JavaScript, we're going to write a script tag. Okay, and notice how again we start and end the script tag here, and inside here, anything in here is going to be JavaScript, kind of like our CSS, right? We have a style tag, and anything inside is our CSS. Same idea. And because it's JavaScript, now we can actually comment like this, right? With / and say, we can put JS goes here. Okay. We can now finally do /s, so we don't have to do like weird stuff anymore, right? Wonderful. So we've written our first. We're getting started with JavaScript. All right, what's great about JavaScript is that, again, everything is in the browser. And it's really easy also to debug things in the browser as well. Again, this is a programming language, so if one little thing is off, there's gonna be a lot of issues that happen. Luckily, we have some help here. We have some browser built-in debug tools. Let's open that up in my browser. Okay, whether you're using Chrome or Safari or Firefox, you should have something where you have View, Developer Tools. Or you just simply right-click and click on Inspect, that same Inspect that we've been using. And if you click on Console, okay, notice there's a console. Notice there's stuff, like, it looks empty right now. But we do have this console. We can easily log out errors or any kind of messages in here. Right? So in my script, let's say I did something weird, like I accidentally put something weird here. Okay, I'm going to get actually an error saying like, hey, on your line 74, you put something ridiculous here. Right? So this is really nice to have because a lot of languages sometimes it's really hard to figure out what you did wrong. Even with CSS and HTML, they don't tell you what something wrong you did. But JavaScript, they do a really good job doing the console. One more time. So to get to the console on Chrome or on Safari, if you do something like Inspect, it's gonna show up to Elements. This tab, there's a couple tabs here. Look for the console tab, or also you can go to View, Developer, and Developer Tools exist as well. Safari, you might have to, if you're using Safari, you might have to like go to settings and turn preferences and turn it on or something. If it's too much hassle for you, just go ahead and open Chrome. Yes.
How do you run it again?
Oh, in the script tag, I just wrote whatever in here, and then when I refresh, it just told, yeah. Every time I refresh, it's gonna reload my page. It's gonna re-render all my JavaScript, or re-execute all my JavaScript. Okay, knowing that console exists is very nice. It's like a nice companion. Luckily, to the console, I can actually log some messages to myself. I can do console. Okay, console. That's the console dot log. Okay. We're gonna parentheses. Hopefully, this looks kind of familiar. Like we've seen this kind of stuff before, where we have parentheses and then semicolon. Okay. So if you hopefully this rings a bell, but this is what it's saying. This is console is my console object. It's literally my console object in the browser. Log is a method of the console object. All right, that's why we see a parentheses here. All right, and we're gonna pass a parameter in here. Okay, it's gonna be a string though, so that's why I have double quotes. I'm gonna say hey. All right, I'm gonna save that, and if I refresh, oh, there, hey. Okay, so I can log this as many times as I want. Again, this is just a nice little friendly thing to have. Very useful when you're debugging things and when you're like, wait, something's not happening. Just try to log out a message, and it'll help you kind of out along the way. But like something like this, JavaScript. This is built into JavaScript. There's a lot of objects and methods like this that you don't have to do anything. JavaScript just does for you. Here's another one that is kind of neat to work with. Window.alert. Okay, let's do, hello there, or something. Okay, if I save this and I refresh, oh, what's that? Hey, you've seen these before, these annoying little like pop-up alert things. That's this. Okay, so there's some built-in things that come with JavaScript. These are some of them. There's a whole list of them. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I just want to show you there are. Okay. So actually, with alert we just tend to omit the window a lot. So by the way, window literally means like this window, right? This window object. Okay, but we can actually take that out and just simply do alert as well, and that's fine too. Like, it's just a shorter way to write it. just because alert is very common. People are like, oh, I don't think we should need to require that anymore. Okay. Creating variables in JavaScript. There's a couple ways to do this. A few ways to do this. Here's like a most common way you've seen var. If we do var like message or something equals like hey, for example, right? Okay, now we do alert message, right? It's slightly different because this is a variable, so we're talking about the variable. It's different from doing quotes, right? Like that. Now I'm gonna see, okay, now if I refresh, I'm gonna see hi, and then I'm gonna see hey. Alright, so okay, hopefully, if you forgot how to program in the last few weeks, hopefully this brings, it's like starting to bring back some memories. What else? Oh yes, so we can declare variables like this. We could also declare variables like this. We're gonna let message 2 or something. We're gonna let that one be like, what's up or something. We can do that as well. Hi, what's up? Okie dokes. Let's create a function. So, right, again, we're reading code from top to bottom, right? That's why we're seeing like, hey, hi, hey, like we're top to bottom. That's normal. However, we can also create functions here. To declare a function, creating a function. Okay, let's say I want to create a function called, instead of like doing just alert, I want to say function say hello. Like I only want, I want to create a function to trigger my alerts. So I'm gonna go ahead and comment out my alerts real quick, guys. Here. Okay. Right. So when I declare, or the proper word is declare a function. Right. When I say hello is when I want to now say like message or something, or hello. Right. If I save this, I refresh, nothing happens. Because all this does is we're declaring a function, okay? We're not actually, we haven't called the function yet. Nothing is triggering this function yet. To trigger the function or to invoke it or whatever, to call the function, we have to do something like this, say hello, okay? Very typical looking, very typical stuff so far, I hope. Okay, now if I refresh, there you go, now it just says hello. Every time I refresh. Here's another way to declare function, just because you're going to see this a lot as well. Okay, you're going to see this way and this way as well. In my lectures, I'm probably going to keep with this syntax, but a lot of times you're going to see this a lot too. But they're essentially the same thing, it's just a slightly different way to write it, but they're both named say hello, as you can see. So now if I save this, or, actually maybe I should comment that. There you go, it's still going to run that. Yes?
Let one say hello function call both of them?
I think it's going to just call this one. I think this, by doing this, I think I overwrite this one.
Because it's lower, because it used that syntax.
What was that?
Because it's lower, because it used that syntax.
Because it's the order. Yeah. Yeah, we're just replacing the say hello. Yeah, I don't think it'll be called twice, or will it? No, yeah, it's only gonna call the bottom. All right. Okay, that's neat. Again, we're just learning about functions. In JavaScript, we can return things in functions. So if I did like, okay, let me go and comment this out just so we don't confuse people. If I do return like hi or something. Okay, this is kind of interesting here. Functions return stuff all the time, even though we don't see it. Right, and if I just say hello here, okay, let's do that, sorry. Okay, if I refresh, I get the hello, right? Hello, And I also, I called it twice. I called it here as well. Notice how over here I get hi back. Okay. So sometimes you want to know what the function returns. You can actually grab it. We're not going to be using it quite yet. We'll talk more about this, but I just want to show you that's possible. You can function in JavaScript. Functions are always returning something, whether you know it or not, whether you declare something or not. So I do want to just kind of emphasize that. Okay, all this is great, awesome, cool. However, like, why do we care, right? Who cares about functions? Now let's finally apply it to more of a real life, like, web thing here, right? Where let's make something happen. Let's make it so that only when I click on this button, this don't click me button, when I click on the button that tells me how to click it, that's when I want this alert to pop up. All right, let's try that out. Here, again, JavaScript has evolved so much over the years, and there's so many different ways to write things. So I'm going to show you a few of them. I'm going to show you 3. Here's version 1. Probably more straightforward to do this, but we're going to do this in here. Let's go to my HTML. You see this button, right? This button. Don't click me, right? This button. So when I click on this button, I want I want the alert button to show up, right? So in here, okay, I could actually do something like this. On click, it's an attribute here. Okay, and then just say hello. Makes sense? When I click on the button, it's going to run my function called say hello. If I refresh, hello. One more time. If I refresh, click on the button, I get hello. Okay. So this used to be a very common way to write JavaScript. Even a couple of years ago, this is the way I taught it. However, again, we've evolved. JavaScript has evolved a lot, and mixing JavaScript in here with your HTML can get really messy really fast. So I highly suggest against it. So this is I just want to show you, this is inline JavaScript. Don't do this, okay? So I just want to show you because you might see it around the internet, on the web, like when you're searching for Stack Overflow on Stack Overflow or something. You might see this, but you can do it like this, but don't do this. Don't do it in your assignments either. We don't want to mix JavaScript with CSS. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm still going to comment it out just for your own reference. All right. But I made a copy of it, and I'm going to get rid of unclick here. I'm going to bring it back. All right. So this is what I did here. I'm leaving it. I just commented out just so you have it as reference, but everything else I'm leaving alone. Okay. Alrighty, so okay, then how do we do this in JavaScript, right? Okay, let's go back down here to all my script. All right. Okay. Let's go ahead and show alert when a button is clicked. Okay, let's write this in pure JavaScript now, or in just JavaScript, not inside the thing. We're going to do something that looks like this. Document dot get element by ID. btn click. That's the ID of my button. Right? Dot on click equals say hello. Let me go ahead and stretch this out just so you can see this. Okay, notice the say hello and it's not this. Okay, it's just the name. We'll come back to it in a second, but let's test this out. I'm gonna save, refresh. Now when I click on the button, only when I click on the button, I get the hello. Okay. Let's take a look at this is new, right? This is new stuff we wrote. Let's take a look at this. Document. What the heck is document? Document refers to my entire HTML document, right? And what's next? In this document object, this is my entire document, there's a method called getElementById. Okay, and this does exactly what it sounds like. It's gonna look through go and look through all my entire HTML. Okay, it's gonna look through my HTML. It's going to look for an element with the ID button click, which happens to be this one. And luckily with IDs, there's only one of them, so that's great. We'll have to talk about classes later, right? But that's great, right? Okay, dot again, and then on click. All right, so on click is another property of this button click. This object, this element here, has a property called on click. And what this is essentially doing is it's waiting for the JavaScript is kind of waiting for someone to click on this. And the moment JavaScript knows someone clicked on this, we're going to =, run this function, say hello, which is up here. Okay, I want to show you what happens. Some of you might be wondering, oh, why don't we do this, right? Because that's how you invoke a function, right? Why don't we do that? If I refresh, what's going to happen? Oh, it's just going to get invoked right away. All right, so be careful with that one. The moment you hit put this, it means invoke it right away. Versus in here, it's a little bit different because this is again, it's a slightly different way of programming. Okay, we're waiting. We're kind of in this waiting period until somebody triggers on click. That's when say hello happens. Okay, so it is a little bit different, a slightly different way of thinking of things. We like to call this event-driven programming or event-based programming because events are kind of controlling what happens. Here's another. You can also do things like this, where again, click right. Okay, we can create, if technically I don't have to create separate functions like this. I could create functions right on the fly, something that looks something like this. Okay. We call these anonymous functions, where literally it's called anonymous because it doesn't have a name. There's no name attached to it. And what this does, so I can do my alert in here, let's say like, don't click my... Okay, kind of weird, but notice a curly brace here, block, this is a block, a common block, this is a curly brace here, Okay, kind of weird, but literally, the moment I click on that thing, we're going to run this function, this whole function here, which is alert, don't click me. I can add a lot of stuff here. I could even add a console log, like, he said, don't click me. All right. Right? So what happens now if I refresh, if I click on this, let me open up the console. If I click on this, I get, don't click me, right? And then it says, he said, don't click me. So this function only gets run when I click on that button. Okay. Okay, one more way to write this. I always debate if I should introduce it or not, but I introduced it in the morning section, so I guess I should introduce it here. Here's again, just because I know, when you're working on your assignment, you're gonna be Googling things, you're gonna be looking at tutorials, you're gonna be looking at Stack Overflow. You might encounter something like this. Same thing between click, right? But you might find something like this. Event listener. Okay. Where this is now, it's a method of this object now versus this was a property. Okay, you could also, and say hello, it could be a function, it could be an anonymous function, right? Okay, essentially this and this does the exact same thing, just a different way to write it, using methods instead of properties. Some people argue this way is better. blah, 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 blah. In my lectures, I'm going to keep writing this way, the style up here that I've written before, only because I think it's a little bit more straightforward, a little bit cleaner, in my opinion. But there, you are going to see this occasionally. This is exactly the same thing as on my onClick. It looks just a little different, right? This click is like click, literally. Say hello is the name of the function, right? Same thing. Click is click, and then function is the anonymous function. Okay, just for your FYI. Okay, cool. Let's do more with now that we kind of understood that. Let's do a little bit more with event listeners. So we have onClick stuff. Cool. How about this? Let's try this. Don't touch me. Now, what about hover effects, right? With CSS, we were able to do hover effects rather easily. How about with JavaScript? Okay, let's do a hover effect. Okay, same thing, same idea here. We're going to document dot get element by ID. Luckily, I have an ID for this guy as well. This one is I don't know what it was. I think btn-touch, right? btn-touch. Okay. We're gonna do, instead of onClick, it's gonna be on mouse enter. Let me okay. With JavaScript, because it's so long, I gotta on mouse. Okay. So the difference, the big difference is that green text right there, onClick versus on mouse enter. All right. So when I enter that mouse, I'm going to run the anonymous function. I'm going to simply do an alert message and say like I said, don't touch me. Okay, so the only difference here again is that click event, the event here, onClick versus like a hover, on mouse enter, when I enter my mouse. All right, so if I save this and I refresh, okay, all right, so if I hover, it's gonna yell at me. If I gotta be careful here. Okay, if I click, it's gonna yell at me. Okay. So this key thing here. Okay, so let's take a look at this one more time. Again, we're grabbing the element, right? We're grabbing literally the element that we want to trigger. If that thing gets triggered by some kind of event, some kind of mouse, whether it's a mouse enter or a mouse click, we're going to run this function, and this function is going to do whatever the heck we want it to do. Okay, I'll let you write this down if you miss anything. Okay, any questions? We're doing some pretty cool stuff here. Let's move on. We got good at buttons. Let's talk about images now. So what I want to do is when I hover over this image, I want to change it to a different image. Okay, so right now I think the image is like Kanye 1 or something. Yeah, Kanye-1. And I want to change this to a slightly different image. And when I hover over. So this requires like a little more. Well, first things first, JavaScript looks so ugly when it's like bunched up like this, but don't be too afraid. It's pretty straightforward. All right, let's go ahead and do the image, right? Image swap. All right, so the idea is similar. We're going to go ahead and so what is it? So this is an image, right? When I hover over the image, I want it to change. So I need to know what am I gotta first set up my event listener here, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. My document dot. Okay, my image, right? I'm going to show you a slightly different way to write this. Instead of get element by ID, we can also do query this is a new thing as well in JavaScript. We're going to do query selector. Okay, not get element by ID, query selector. What this allows us to do is now it's just a little bit nicer way to write this. IDs in CSS are denoted by hash, right? So we could, with query selector, we can be a little more free with our selectors using a CSS selector. So I can do something like this, and then do this one has a ID called Kanye. There you go, Kanye. Okay. So okay, when the user when the user hovers over hovers over the image, then I'm going to do something. All right. So query selector, I just want to show you. Query selector is just like get element by ID. It allows us to literally grab an element from our document, right, from our HTML. But it allows us to use like the CSS selectors that we know. So it just just makes it a little bit easier. So it actually is doing the exact same thing as this. It's just later when we do like classes, we can do classes like this and stuff as well. So it's a little nicer. So we're gonna try to use that. Okay, so when I hover over Kanye, okay, the image element, we want to change the image. All right. So with normal HTML, how do you change an image? What do you change? Yes, the source, that src attribute. Right? That src attribute is part of this image element. Right? Luckily for us, this src attribute is very easily accessible for us. Okay, what we're gonna do is we still need to do the same thing. So when I hover over Kanye, I still need to grab Kanye. Okay, I still need to get him. All right, that's my image object right there. All right, but what I'm gonna do is I want that object's source. Okay, luckily, I misspelled Kanye. I could just simply do this .src. Okay, because src is an attribute of this image object, it automatically becomes a property of our object here. Okay, now we can say equal sign. Now we can change it to whatever we want. We're going to do images / Kanye-2.jpg. There you go. There you go. All right. Give me a second to copy that down. Yes. Okay. You copy the exact same code. Do you see any errors when you click on console? Do you see any errors? Oh, it looks like it's complaining about say hello. Yeah, make sure you uncomment that. Yeah, or something. Yeah, so with JavaScript, that's a good point. If something is broken up here, like somewhere up here, it's not going to continue on. So, yeah, so that console is very helpful. Again, if I did something like, oh, whoopsie, I put an R or something, it's going to, oh, really? It's not going to, or something like that. There you go, I get errors. Right, so that console is very, very, very handy.
Is there a way to have it on the next hover?
Yeah, we're gonna do that. Yeah, or more like we're gonna when I hover out, I'm gonna flip it back. Okay. Anyone else with having questions or problems? Okay, now the reverse though, right? How about if I want to flip it back to the original image? Like, so when I flip, it went that way. When I hover out, we go back to the original image. All right. Luckily, it's pretty easy to do. I'm gonna just copy paste this one more time. Instead of on mouse enter, the opposite of on mouse enter is on mouse leave, right? Leaves. So when my mouse leaves, I'm going to grab the source. I'm going to change it back to Kanye 1. Yeah, I'll come back in a second. So now we got a boop, 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 boop. Right? If you want to just have fun with that, you totally can. Right? There you go. So So by now, I hope you're understanding this concept of event-driven programming. How, you know, we're grabbing things, we're waiting for something to trigger it, and then when it's triggered, this function runs. Same idea. We're writing this like over and over again. Okay, almost. Okay. Here, I just want to introduce one more thing here. So we're getting a little repetitive here, right? We have Kanye, Kanye. We're talking like we keep referring to Kanye over and over and over again. So it's a little repetitive. There's some ways we can get, you know, just to make this code a little better. This is fine, actually. This is totally fine. But I just want to introduce you to a thing in JavaScript. There's something called, let me go and copy this and comment that out. There's something called this, literally this. And notice how it's orange, so it means like it's a reserve. It's actually a reserved word. Okay. So this, it's hard to explain because like it's this. Okay. So what this is referring to in this case, right? Oh gosh. What this is referring to is whatever whatever object we've just invoked or whatever object we're just talking about is that. So right now it's like, oh, I'm Kanye, right? I'm mousing over Kanye, the image Kanye. Okay, so this automatically is referred to Kanye. Okay, so I mean again, same thing. This line is the exact same thing. It just this is a little shorter, and it just kind of makes more sense anyway. Just yeah, again, like a little nice to know kind of thing. Reduces your code effort, reduces some time a little bit here.
That's just the thing we selected earlier.
Exactly. So, you know. Alright, it's working. Any questions? Alrighty. Okay, one thing I do I want to show you a little bit more. I'm just trying to understand this a little bit more. So this query selector thing seems it's really cool, right? It allows us to literally like get anything off my HTML page and I can do stuff, right? I do want to show you, I'm going to go ahead and log this out real quick here. Like my Kanye, for example, right? If I log out just document.querySelector, Kanye, let's see what it shows me in my console here. Okay. Whoa, that's literally my object, my image, Kanye, right there. Okay. The reason I'm showing you this is because I just want you to understand that when I document.querySelect Kanye, okay, it's actually returning this image, this object. And on this object, I'm adding I'm invoking yet another property. So this is objects. It's craziness. Maybe in your object-oriented programming lectures, you created some objects yourself. This is objects to like the next level. Like luckily, they're given to us, so I don't have to worry too much about it. But behind the scenes, like all these are a bunch of objects and properties that some group of people created for you. All right, cool. Let's move on to our boxes. Okay. Let's now try some CSS. So far we've done button. We did button. We made alerts show up. We've changed images. Let's talk about CSS here. Alrighty, let's take a look at this over here. All right, so my my boxes, they're all here actually. They're all in divs. They're little divs, and they all have an ID. Notice box 1, box 2, blah blah blah. They also have classes as well. Okay. Let's stick with ID first, just because we know it, and we'll swap over to class real quick. So let's say I wanted to, you know, like when I, you know, document dot query selector box 1, right? There's my box 1. With JavaScript, let's write this. With JavaScript, we can also it's not correct, right? Elements style. So box 1, right now the box 1, it looks like it has like a, it's like a background color black or something, I think. I don't know. Anyway, that's that, right? Yeah, that's my box 1 right there. With JavaScript, I can change its CSS as well. I can do something like this, dot again. Remember, like src is like source, this one doesn't have a source. It's gonna be dot style, actually. Okay. And let's change it to, I don't know, like blue or something for now. Okay, notice I put quotes because it's supposed to be a string. So if I save this and I refresh, where'd it go? It did not change. Oh, I'm sorry. Style, what am I doing? Style, we gotta give it a more specific. What the heck are we doing? Let's do let's do color first, just to keep things simple. Right? Oh, look, there you go. Notice what happened? Yep, background will work as well. But notice color now became blue. And notice it's an inline style. Okay, so that style is my style attribute right there. Okay. I can do any other CSS as well. Maybe what about background, right? I could do background. And with CSS, we do background dash color, right? But in JavaScript, you never want to use dashes because the moment you use dashes, JavaScript's going to think you're trying to subtract things like arithmetic. So you want, instead, we use camel case, something like that. Okay. There you go. Now it's blue. Notice how style equals background color blue. So as you can kind of see, these tabs are really useful when I'm working with JavaScript. Like console gives me errors and stuff. Elements kind of shows me what I'm doing, right? And even with back to my Kanye image real quick. Where'd it go? In my Kanye image, notice that my image source here, right? When I hover, notice how that source it changed right away. Like it's like changing that. You see that purple? How it's changing real time. So it's very helpful when you're trying to debug or figure out what's happening with your stuff here. So like this is my box here, right? It's blue. Cool. So as you can see, we can do stuff with CSS. Now that we know that, all right, let's go and comment that out. Right? Now that we know that, now we can change colors depending on what we do. So let's say if I click on box 1, okay, let's do this again. Document.query selector box 1, right? When I click on it, okay, when I click on box 1, what I wanted to do is I want the entire background color to change to black. So I can do something like this, document.query selector, right? I can actually do something like this, body, because body represents my browser, and I can say body background, style, don't forget style, background color equals black, or 000 or something, that hex value. Right now I can put it into like an event, inside an event handler. Okay, if I do that, if I refresh, now if I click on the black, cool. Actually, with body, you can do simply like this as well. Just the way that our HTML is structured, we can do that as well. So let's think about it. Okay, let's make this a little bit more dynamic. So now if I click on the black box, it turns black. But if I click on the white box, I want to turn white, right? So then maybe I have to write something like this, like, oh, box 1, box 2, right, like box 2, box 3, so on and so forth. What's box 3? CCC, right? This will work as well. Okay. However, as you can see, this can get pretty tedious, right? I gotta do this like 6 times. So what if like I have 12 boxes? Oh my gosh, I have to write this 12 times. Right? It gets a little tedious and very repetitive. And this is a very good case for like a for loop, don't you think? A loop. When you have things multiple happening, it looks like it's something that would work for a for loop. Okay. All right. How about yes?
Sorry. If it's not changing color when
It's first check your console to see if you have any errors. If something's not happening, it's probably because there's an error and then it prevented it from happening. Do you see any errors? And it usually tells you like what line.
it's saying that it doesn't recognize the curly brace.
What line? This is the what line?
140, which would be your 138.
Just make sure that anything before that line, like you have your curly braces closed, your parentheses closed. Make sure there's oh, it's okay, it's okay. Oh, Sophia's on the rescue. Okay, so ideally, like we should do box 1, box 2, box 3, and then like it would work. Or we could do that. However, this can get tedious pretty fast. So a natural question would be like, is there a way to, like not have to do it like this? What if we use classes, right? So all these boxes have classes, right? Can we do something along those lines, right? So what I would try is, so there is something called query selector all, or before I even do that, starting with query selector, you can do color boxes. Or so what is it called? Color box. Oops, sorry, color box. Okay. So you think, oh, this will select all my classes, right? And if I do like on click, so on and so forth, the same thing over and over again, right? Like, wouldn't that just solve all my problems? Okay. Unfortunately, the answer is no. You can't. What query selector does is it only selects the first match of that class. So if I did something like this, where I did, I can console log almost anything out. Okay, so anytime you run into some doubts or questions, console it out, like log it out and see if anything happened. Did it work? What was the issue? Oh, yeah, that happens. Okay. Yeah, computers are not smart, so if you spell function wrong, it doesn't know what you're saying. All right, if I did something like this, what shows up? Okay, like right, if I do something like this, what shows up? Only my first color box shows up, so it only takes care of my first match. So what we gotta use actually is something called query selector all. Okay, so we write that query selector returns the first match. Okay, query selector all returns, I don't know, let's see what it returns. Boom, we get a nice list here. It looks like an array, actually. Look at the indices, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Box 1, box 2, box 3, box 4, box 5, box 6. So query selector all returns an array of all the matches. Okay, and they call this like node list, but think of it just as a list of all the objects that match that that color or that CSS class. Okay, all right. So knowing this, what I want to do then is I want to access all of the boxes and say whatever box is clicked, right? I want the background color to change depending on what was clicked. So let's run through this list. This is our very good use case for our for loop, because we're going to run through all the list of all my color boxes. Okay, we're going to go through this list. We're going to do I is greater than the box. Wait, we got to create a variable for this. We could do boxes. Let's do that again. Okay, we have an array of called boxes. All right, let's go through the boxes. Dot length, not size of or size or whatever. We're gonna do I++. We're gonna run through this entire list, this whole thing. All right, we're gonna run through all of them, and we're gonna give all of them. We're gonna say, okay, each of my boxes, right? Each of my boxes I. Each of them are gonna have an onClick property, onClick, function, group. Okay, each of them, all 6 of them, are going to have this onClick property, and we're going to simply do document dot background color, right? Dot style dot background color, all right, equals for now. Okay, for now I just to keep things simple, just for now I'm gonna go ahead and do 0, 0, 0. All of them are gonna be black. So no matter whatever box I click, the background color is gonna change to black for now. Okay, we gotta fix that one in a bit. Save. Refresh. So if I click on CCC, document.body. What am I doing? Document.body. Okay, body the whole browser. All right, refresh. So if I click on CCC, I get black. All right, if I refresh, if I click on this FC0, I get black. Refresh, this red one, I get black. Right? So all 6 boxes now have an event listener assigned to it. Now they all know how to, they all get it. Awesome. Okay, here's the code again if you missed anything. Okay. Yes. You can actually, but you would need to you still need it in a script tag. So you need to put it I don't know, you can do it here, something. But that's kind of weird, right? Why are you thinking you need a variable for? Good idea. Yeah, we'll talk about that right now. Yeah. Right. So right now everything is becoming. Right, everything is becoming black, but now I want this to be a little bit more dynamic. So depending on the box I click, I want it to change the color, right? So if I click on the yellow box, I want it to be yellow, so on and so forth. How do I do that? Okay, I'm gonna show you 2 ways. First way might be a little bit, but notice how right now the box has #000 in it. So in my box 1, I have the words 000 in it. In my box 2, I have the letters FFF in it, right? These denote the colors. So what I can do is I can grab this box, whatever is inside this box, and change the background color to that thing, right? So how do I do that? How do I grab the the inside part of that box? I can do that by, where we go, and here I'm going to comment this out just for your own reference. And in here, I'm going to say my box, right? My box is I, because every box is different. All right, that specific box, go get its inner HTML. HTML capitalized on purpose, okay? Inner HTML grabs the text inside that box. Okay, if I save this, boom, 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 boom. Awesome. One downside though, okay, is another natural question. Okay, we gotta do one last thing, so I'm gonna cover it here. One problem though is, well, what if, like, you know, if I want to add more text in here, now it's like not gonna work, right? Okay, that's not always the best case. There's another way to do it here. To add a variable. So if you want to, you can add attributes here called data, right? And you can name these whatever you want. You can call them data color, data blah blah blah, whatever you want. Doesn't matter. You can data color, and you could add an attribute like this, and then you can grab the data values as well. Okay, so you can say like data color. These are called data attributes, and you can create your own. Okay. Feel free to look this up on how to grab those values. It's pretty easy. I'm not going to show it to you just now, but you can use this data attributes here. All right, so you can do that as well. I think it's honestly, I just can't remember the exact. I think it's like data. It's not data color. It's something, but all right. Okay, I do want to do one last thing. This traversal before we do it, but hopefully this is working for you. If not, feel free to come talk to me after class. All right, we're gonna do this last thing here. This weird stuff here. What we're doing with this one is, let me go ahead and open this real quick. Okay. What we're doing with the last bit here, this little thing is, I want to do. You've seen this stuff where you can like open and close. We call these accordions. You've definitely seen these before, like in your FAQ section. We're going to create that using JavaScript as well. Okay. However, this is going to be a little bit more trickier because on purpose, notice how that's my DOM section. Okay, I don't have IDs here. Notice how H3 doesn't have, like, none of these have IDs. How the heck do we grab them if we don't have IDs? This DOM section has an ID, but that's about it, right? But notice though, even though I don't have IDs, the pattern is the same. I have H3, P, H3, P, H3, P, right? H3 is that title thing, and then P is the text, okay? Meaning if I click on H3, that P is gonna either like disappear or appear. Same thing with the second one, third one. So depending on, so there is a bit of a structure here that's familiar. So no, even though I don't know specific IDs, I can use like relationships. I can use children. I can use siblings, right? H3 and P, we call them siblings because they're next to each other. They're siblings. H3 and P are siblings. Actually, they're all siblings in this case, right? The DOM, this div is the parent of H3, right? So there's some relationships. Using these relationships, we can we can utilize relationships to alter CSS and so on and so forth as well. Okay, so we also call this DOM traversal. Okay. Okay, this is the last thing we're gonna do today. First things first, you know, we gotta let's go ahead and like grab all the what triggers it, right? The trigger is the titles, right? Grab all the titles, H3s. Right? We want to grab all of them. Okay. So anytime when this gets clicked on, something has to happen, right? So I need to grab all my titles. Anytime the H3 is clicked on, something's gonna happen, right? So we gotta do that. Let's go ahead and let's go and get all those. We're gonna let titles equal document.query selector all DOM section, right? And I'm going to simply do H3. So we can do compound selectors like this with query selector all, just like CSS. This is my DOM section. All the H3s in my DOM section. I'm going to grab all of them. I'm going to run another lovely for loop. Okay, I'm going to run through all my titles. I'm going to say on click, right? Each of them, there's 3 of them. Each of them, when I need to click on any of them, we're going to run a function. Okay, so what should happen? When I click on H3, what's going to happen? My P here, the P that comes right after my H3, it needs to like disappear. Okay, how the heck do I do that? We might have to test a few things, but there is something called next sibling. So if I do something like this, right? This is whatever I just got. My this next sibling. Okay, let's log that out. I don't really quite remember what this does, so let's go and log this out real quick. Okay, console.this sibling. Okay, so now if I go on my console, if I click on any of the H's, notice how I get some kind of text. What the heck is that, right? And then it's like there's a lot of information here. Okay, none of it is very useful. What I want is actually this one. So I'm going to next sibling element. Let's take a look at element. Let's kind of refresh this. So in your lab, you might have to use this kind of thing. So you might want to look that up. Anyway, if I click on H3 now, next element sibling. Okay. Notice how, if I click on, I'm just clicking on a lot just so you can see it. Every time I click on it, I see the paragraph that comes right after. It's literally that's what I want, right? That paragraph that comes after this. If I click on the crease one, then the paragraph that follows is the one that follows, right? So we're using the relationship to access a little different stuff here. Okay, now that I know that, then I can, cool, I can do something like this, right? I can say, hey, this dot next element dot sibling style dot display equals simply none. Like we just use CSS to make it go away. So now if I refresh, now I can say when I click on my title, it's gonna go away, it's gonna go away. Nice. Okay. Give me a second to let that sink in. Okay, how do I bring it back? I'm gonna have to use an if-else statement, right? So right now, every time I click on it, it's just gonna always display none, as you can see, right? So I need to do some like, I gotta figure out a way to get it back and all this stuff. There's some ways you can do this, but this is kind of like, this is what I like to do a lot. So remember my CSS file? I had us change that hide as display to none. Notice there's a class there. Right now, if I go to element right now, my P, it just goes style equals display none. Right? I want to show you a slightly different way to do this. Instead of doing this, which is fine actually, I want to do something like this. This dot next element dot sibling. I want to say I want to, instead of writing inline styles, I'm going to give a class list dot add hide. Okay. That hide is coming from my CSS here, hide. Okay, let's go ahead and save this and take a look at what that looks like. So now if I click on this, notice how, P class equals hide comes up, right? So it's a little bit, this allows us to add class to my CSS class here. Okay, all right. Okay, so what's so great about that? So then now I could actually write something like this. I can say if, okay, and we can write this either way. If this next class list, if it contains a class called hide, right? If if it does, then let's make this, let's go ahead and get rid of that hide class. Else, we're going to add it up. Okay, so we're using that class name. Okay, so if it has the class, right, that means if I click on it, it needs to get rid of it. So when I first run this, none of my p tags don't have that class hide. So when I click on it, it's going to add that class hide. So if I click on it, it's going to add class hide. Ooh. And now that paragraph is gone. If I click on it again, it's going to, now it's going to, should add hide. Well, let me save this, make sure it saves or save. Oh, there you go. Okay, so let's try that one more time. So when I first load it, the P does not have a class at all. Okay, so if I click on this H3, it's going to trigger, oh, let's add a hide. So it adds a hide. It has a hide, class hide. And then if I click on it again, now it's going to look at my first if my first condition is going to be like, oh, hey, that has that class hide. So if I click on it, it's going to remove that class hide, and now it's going to be like, bloop. So we're utilizing classes as well as we can utilize just straight up inline styling like this, or we can utilize this class attribute. Yes. Yeah. So this is the for loop is not determining how many clicks it is. The only thing the for loop is doing is it's going through all my titles. Oh, there's 3 of them, right? There's 3 of them, and it's assigning this on-click event here. Yeah. So every time I could click, it's gonna run this function again and over and over. Yeah. So it's like a one-time thing. Good question. All right. Any questions, concerns? Okay. I do want to give you a little time. I know I don't have much time, but I want to give you a little time to start on your lab, just to get a little bit started. So I'm gonna end here. But if you're still confused about this part, I know even for me when I first learned this, I was like, what? So if you want me to walk this through with you, feel free to come up. I'm happy to explain it to you again. But for your assignment, your lab, I give you all the images, I give you all the CSS. All you have to worry about is when I click on the thumbnail, the main image changes. Right, so these thumbnails, as you can see, you're gonna be running a for loop just like how we did in class. You're gonna grab all the thumbnails, and depending on which thumbnail is clicked, you need to change the main image. Right, so it's a pretty neat lab. I think it lets you think a little bit. It's a pretty cool lab, so go ahead and try that out. And then your assignment, the reason why I'm assigning the assignment earlier than usual, it's still due on Sunday though, is this calculator is a little bit more challenging than your previous 3 assignments. So that's why I'm giving you some more time with this. I give you all the buttons and everything. I give you the display, all this stuff, so you don't have to write any HTML, CSS. I mean, you could if you want to, but you don't need to. And you're just writing JavaScript to make the calculator work. And the calculator, you just click on the buttons and they're gonna work. You don't need to type it or anything. They just click on it and it needs to work like this. And it needs to do multiple, calculation. It needs to handle decimals. So there's a lot of little edge cases here. So this is going to take you probably more time than your past, how long it took you to do your past assignments. So I suggest you start early, visit our office hours, right? We have a lot of office hours. There's some every day. So try to get started on it. And when you come across questions, that's a good time to go to your TA and or myself, right? So, all right then, that's it for today, guys. Have a great week. I'll see you Wednesday.